Hello, I'm back again, pretty quickly, with another poem to share with you. Again, I am driven by a deep passion to share my poetry, targeting coming in the theme of the toxic drug crisis. But as I do that, it kind of spreads out. There's so much I have to share that I think is helpful, not only when it comes to the toxic drug crisis, but just in general. I recently did my poetry workshop. It was amazing, amazing. And if you're watching this and you want to know more, reach out and send me a message. We can talk. If you're watching this and you wanted to be there, but you couldn't, stay tuned. There will be more. And I talked about how, one of the many reasons why I think poetry is so important right now is that I think that we're living in what I'm calling basement times. And, it's kind of like it's such a mess, and everything that's been so suppressed deep down and held down and unprocessed is just exploding and everywhere. And it's a mess because the basement's been clogged up, like a toilet that's clogged. And I think we're living in basement times. And so the poetry that I share with you, the poetry I'm trying to invite people to write themselves, is like basement poetry, where we kind of go into our own basements and sort through the things that are there in an attempt to try to clear things out individually and collectively. And so, yeah, that's why I'm sharing all of this with you. And so I'm going to kind of step back a little bit. I've kind of talked about the track of healing, and I've begun to share some of my stories, and I've shared about my mother and I. Now, I'm pretty special. I'm pretty lucky to have such a special mom who has, all the way along, since I have begun trying to heal, she's been willing to meet me in it, as messy as it is, as messy as she is, as messy as I am, as messy as we are. She's always been willing to meet me in it and talk and admit where she has made error and receive my forgiveness and ask for it. And she's been willing to forgive me where I've been in error. And it's been this beautiful process that I think is quite rare. I think it's pretty rare that I'm able to engage in such a way with my mother. So why do I keep on talking about mother? Well, I think that a lot of the deeper unprocessed mess that most of us have individually and collectively kind of goes back. As we begin to explore our own, it goes back. And then we start to look at our relationships with our mothers and our fathers. And there's something very especially important about that mother-child relationship. And when we live in a world that really doesn't value mothering and women the way it should, that really gets compromised often from the get-go. And then factor in all these other things. And we look at our fathers, but then we start to look at theirs, and we start to kind of see that throughout history, in this lineage that's ours, we begin to see how there's just been all of this unprocessed trauma has been passed along, generational trauma, right? So I hang out with a bunch of my friends of varying ages, and I get to kind of hear stories from different generations, and I find it fascinating kind of as I piece it all together. I'm a real kind of puzzler and a sleuth, and I try to see connections, and God really leads me in doing that. Not that I have all the answers, but I've experienced and perceived things deeply. And I've noticed that people who are around my age or even younger are kind of like, we're all living in, like, we've kind of been handed so much unprocessed trauma. It really hasn't been safe or invited by and large for it to be managed in our society, in our culture. It's getting better. And it's just all exploding. So people my age and younger are kind of seeing it and recognizing that we need to participate in our work. And what I kind of tend to notice is that the generation before and before that has spent a lot of their time kind of like deeply wounded by all of it and really unable to, or haven't begun doing much of their own deeper work. It's almost like, I think, a whole generation ducked and covered and kind of like shoved it all down, locked it up, and ducked and covered, and kind of thought that they could divorce themselves from it and raise the next generation as if it was all fine and tickety-boo. And that caused issues too. You see, when it comes to all of this stuff that we need to work through together, we have our own stuff and we have our collective stuff and we have our familial stuff. And we all need to get working at it. And so this poem I want to share is called Mothers, We Need You. I'm friends with a lot of women who are kind of in the age range of my mother, and I've been talking to any of them that, kind of hang closely with me about how important it is and how valuable it would be to their adult children and their grandchildren and their future lineage, how powerful it would be for them to even now begin to do work of their own. But I think we get so conditioned, especially as mothers, to like do, go, serve, give. And so, and nothing about me, and especially in Christian culture, which, don't even get me started, right? Like there's frustrating things about Christian culture that we've been taught that aren't entirely right or healthy or true. They've been twisted truths. And maybe I'll start to talk about some of that along the way. But I think a lot of, mothers have thought that there's no room for themselves. And so they've kind of like, in a false sense, they've sacrificed themselves, which seems to be the Christian thing to do. But, there needs to be a self to sacrifice. And so they've kind of just buried the self. Meanwhile, the self is still wounding and needing attending. Okay, so I've said a lot here, and I'm just going to share the poem. There's these women I've been walking with and talking with, and they're just lovely. And I've been trying to say, hey, it's not too late. You see what's happening here. What's your response? And trying to encourage women to wake up and get doing their work. We all need us all to be doing it. So here is Mothers, We Need You. Mothers, women, the circle of sisterhood. We are desperately calling out to you. Please awaken and hear our voices. We've all lived through a heap of mess, but let's confess that this day is done. Let's come to the one who won it all, the one who will catch our fall. We, the younger sisters and daughters, we need to see you weep and soften. We yearn to see you come undone and the spark of new life rekindled. For all these years, the tears were caged, a world enraged by how small, silent, and strong we've had to become. It is done. The muffled screams are streaming. The blood is seeping through the band-aids of bondage. You did what you were taught for survival. You fought it as best you could, and you were wounded babies raised by wounded babies yourselves. Now we are the little girls, like you once were, who scream, act out, and shout, calling the end of an era. We're not gonna take it anymore. We're on the floor, so broken, impaled, we're wailing. We need our mothers. We've been hurt, and you've been hurt. We've all been hurt, but it's time to ditch the disguise of I'm fine. It's time to lay down the defenses, shed the fear, and meet here and now in the truth. In Jesus, deep, muddy, messy. Oh, mothers, we yearn to see you drop your burdens and the bags under your eyes. We pine to see you smile and brighten once again. Will you be renewed? You have so much to offer still, and we need you. We can't do this alone. We are the young girls and the babies yet to come, begging for your hands in the march to freedom. I just should say this. I should have said it sooner in my poems, but when I make mistakes, I kind of just go with it. I don't want to stop, and I'm not into editing. I wish I had editing skills, but I don't. So I just film straight out. If I can't stand it, I stop it and I start again. So if I make little mistakes, I just keep going. If I was performing and I made a mistake, I would just keep going. And there's something about the unfinished business, about the imperfection, the in process, in progress, where it's not tidy all the time. It's not perfect all the time, and it's not beautiful all the time. And yet that is beautiful. And I just want to be somebody too who encourages you, that I don't, like, as I perform my poetry, I share my poetry, it doesn't look so perfectly done that you couldn't imagine yourself doing it. So I sometimes cringe a little inside because I'm still in recovery of perfectionism when I make a mistake, but I just carry on, and I trust that that's all good with you. All right, well, share this with anybody who needs to hear it. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.